In the heart of West Africa, a revolution is unfolding, not with guns and fire, but with policies, speeches, and a fierce conviction for African sovereignty. President Ibrahim Traore of Burkina Faso, the 36-year-old military captain who took power in a 2022 coup, has become a controversial and polarizing figure on the continent and beyond. While millions of Africans now view him as a symbol of freedom and courage, others, especially in elite circles at home and in foreign capitals, are increasingly uneasy, even angry. The reason is simple. Traore is not playing by the old rules. He's rewriting them, dismantling the old order. One of Traore's earliest moves in office was to expel French troops from Burkina Faso. That single decision shook the very foundations of France's influence in West Africa, ending decades of military and economic entanglement. In doing so, he aligned Burkina Faso with a new axis of sovereignty, joining hands with Mali and Niger to form the Alliance of Sahel States, a bloc rejecting foreign interference, especially from former colonial powers. This was not just a military or diplomatic gesture. It was a clear message. Africa is no longer for sale. The reaction was swift. Western media portrayed Traore as anti-democratic, radical, and unpredictable. Critics within Burkina Faso, many of whom had benefited from old patronage systems, warned of isolation and economic collapse. But on the streets of Ouagadougou and in many rural towns, people celebrated. For the first time in years, they felt their country had a leader who spoke and acted like a man of the people. Agricultural revolution, kicking aid to the curb. Another move that is making headlines and enemies is Traore's bold agricultural initiative. Instead of depending on Western food aid, Burkina Faso under his leadership has pivoted towards self-sufficiency. He launched a national campaign to boost rice and millet production, redirected military engineering units to help construct irrigation systems, and encouraged youth to return to farming. Farmers are now receiving state support, not foreign handouts. This shift has irritated some powerful NGOs and Western aid agencies, who quietly see Traore's stance as a threat to their influence in the region. Some donors have pulled back, arguing about lack of transparency, but others admit, off the record, that Burkina Faso's success in farming without external aid could inspire other African nations to follow suit. Education with a purpose. Traore's reforms haven't stopped at the farm. In the education sector, he has launched a curriculum review aimed at removing colonial-era ideologies and replacing them with teachings focused on African history, entrepreneurship, and civic responsibility. Under his watch, national youth academies are being restructured to produce patriots and problem solvers, not job seekers trained for foreign-run NGOs or embassies. These changes, while celebrated by many Burkinabe parents, have alarmed global development partners and stirred anger among pro-Western elites. In international diplomatic meetings, Burkina Faso is now frequently described as rogue or increasingly unpredictable. To Traore's supporters, that's proof he's doing something right. A new foreign policy, with Russia, not the West. Perhaps no single move has ruffled more feathers than Traore's deepening relationship with Russia. Unlike the Cold War-era alliances based on ideology, Traore's outreach appears transactional. Military support in exchange for resource access and security cooperation. But in geopolitics, optics matter, and the image of Russian advisors training Burkinabe troops while French bases shut down has deeply unsettled the West. The U.S. State Department has issued cautious statements warning against authoritarian drift. France has suspended development aid. ECOWAS has debated sanctions. But Traore remains unfazed. In one viral speech, he declared, "They call us the poorest continent, yet they refuse to leave us alone. If we are so poor, why do they stay? Because we are rich, and they know it." That comment alone sparked fury across European think tanks, but earned him thunderous applause across African social media platforms. Clamping down on corruption and making enemies. Domestically, Traore's crackdown on corruption has been both brutal and effective. Several high-ranking officials from previous governments are under investigation or already in custody. State contracts are being reviewed, and ghost workers have been purged from public payrolls. But rooting out corruption in Burkina Faso, a country long entangled with shady business networks and foreign contractors, has come at a cost. Powerful businessmen, some with ties to multinationals, are turning against him. Others have begun funding opposition movements or quietly lobbying international organizations to pressure his administration. In some quarters, whispers of regime change are growing louder. Social media control and the information war. Another front where Traore's moves have sparked anger is his government's increasing control over information. To curb misinformation and anti-government propaganda, the state has occasionally restricted internet access or shut down certain social media platforms. Critics call it censorship. Supporters call it digital defense. Traore argues that information warfare is part of modern colonization, and he's not wrong. Disinformation campaigns have targeted his leadership with fabricated stories about his health, internal coups, and hidden foreign bank accounts. None have been proven true, but the battle for public perception rages on, a threat to the regional power structure. Traore's real crime, in the eyes of many global and regional elites, is not what he says, but what he represents. He has refused to bow. He has rejected the traditional diplomatic playbook. He speaks the language of the oppressed, not in platitudes, but in policies. And he is young. That youth, combined with military charisma and fearlessness, has turned him into a symbol of defiance for millions of Africans, especially the youth. And that terrifies those who thrive under the status quo. From Nigeria to Senegal, from Ghana to Congo, whispers of Traore-style change are creeping into political discourse. Activist groups reference his name. Online movements rally around his face. It's not just about Burkina Faso anymore. It's about a continent on the edge of transformation. President Ibrahim Traore is not perfect. His leadership style is blunt, sometimes harsh, and undeniably militaristic. But he is a product of his environment, a region betrayed by decades of corrupt politicians and foreign manipulation. His moves, from expelling foreign troops to reclaiming agricultural independence, from rewriting schoolbooks to confronting corporate exploitation, have shaken entrenched interests. They have made some people very angry. But to many Africans, especially the poor and the young, they are the moves of a man finally standing up for them. History will judge whether Traore is a visionary or a firebrand. But for now, one thing is certain. He is no puppet. And in a continent long held hostage by foreign strings, that alone makes him dangerous, and for millions, and